In this video, I am breaking down the 7 habits you can use to have fixed 90% of your perimenopause problems. But I have to be clear about something upfront. These are not wellness tips. You are not going to find these on the Hormone Forum or from your GP. These are the exact strategies I use with the senior female leaders I work with privately, women who are running companies leading teams of hundreds, sitting in board rooms, and who cannot afford to have this transition derail the career they have spent decades building. But they also work wonders for everyone in between. So by the end of this video, you are going to have 7 habits that address the root cause of what is actually happening, so you can stop compensating and start operating the way you know you are capable of. Alright, habit number 1. And in my opinion, this is the most important one. I want to tell you about one of my clients, brilliant woman, senior leader, very experienced, exceptionally capable. She started feeling overwhelmed, short-fused, impatient with situations that would not have affected her before. And what did she do? She started avoiding meetings that were uncomfortable, pulling back from complex problems, steering around anything that required her to be in that high-stakes room. On the surface, it looked like a confidence problem, maybe even a performance problem. It wasn't. She was physically depleted. Her biology was under pressure, and the symptoms were real. But the problem was what happened next. She translated that physical state into a story about who she was. I'm no longer a strong leader. I'm no longer capable of handling this level of complexity. A physical, biochemical problem had quietly infiltrated her identity. And that is where it becomes dangerous. Because what we do consistently enough, that is the data our brain uses to answer the very question of who we are. When avoidance becomes the habit, a diminished identity follows. When I started working with her, it took longer than usual because we didn't just have a physiology problem to fix. We had an eroded sense of self to rebuild. The habit is simple, but it requires real intentionality. When you feel overwhelmed, exhausted, incapable of dealing with complexity, before you draw any conclusions, ask yourself this question. If my identity hasn't changed and I am still the same capable leader I have always been, what else could explain what I'm experiencing? Look for the real cause. Almost always it is physical, biochemical, physiological, not a loss of who you are. This works because it keeps the identity protected while the investigation for the real problem begins. And that matters more than anything else on this list. Because if you believe your capability has fundamentally changed, you will stop going after opportunities at the level you deserve. You start undershooting. I say it all the time. Early in our career, we overestimate our capabilities and push beyond them. In perimenopause, the reverse happens. We start underestimating. Hold the identity. Find the real problem at the real level. That's habit number 1. Habit 2. And this one requires a slight reframe. A lot of women at this stage notice that their cognitive processing feels different, slightly slower, less sharp on demand. And so they start trying to solve it. More caffeine, supplements, anything to get back that feeling of fast on-demand thinking. The problem is they are trying to recover something that isn't lost. It's just shifting. There are 2 types of intelligence that are relevant here. Fluid intelligence, the fast, in-the-moment processing, the ability to pick up new information quickly and work with it at speed. And crystallized intelligence, the accumulated synthesis of everything you have learned, every pattern you have recognized, every decision you have made across decades of high-stakes experience. What happens during this transition, according to the research, is that fluid processing can slow somewhat, but something else is emerging on the other side. A much richer, much more connected pattern recognition. New neural connections are forming across networks that were previously separate. Your brain is not declining, it's reorganizing, and here is the financial reality of that shift. People will pay you 10 times, 100 times more for crystallized intelligence than they ever paid for your fluid processing speed. The woman who can walk into a room and see what's actually happening, not just what's on the slide, but the underlying pattern, and articulate it clearly, that's expensive, that's rare, that gets compounded over time, not diminished. The habit is stop trying to accelerate what is naturally slowing. Instead, feed the intelligence that is growing. Read books, not social media, not TV. Specifically go across disciplines. Pick up a book about architecture or behavioral economics or any other type of new discipline-related strategy. Bring disciplines together that don't normally talk to each other. I worked with a C-level product leader who spent a significant amount of time embedding herself with her engineering team. She wasn't really technical as a person, as a leader, but she went deep into how they thought and how they solved problems. Then I sent her on a benchmarking visit to a completely non-competitive company in a different industry. The product roadmap ideas she came back with were unlike anything the company had seen before. This is crystallized intelligence at work. New inputs, novel synthesis, and insight that no one else in the room had access to. That is what you are building. Invest in it deliberately. Habit number 3. Related to habit 3, I want to bring some fun here because this one is real. Executive presence has multiple dimensions: communication, gravitas, the ability to command the room. But there is one factor that sits under the dimension of leadership style that gets significantly underestimated, especially at this stage: how you feel in your body every single day, your appearance. When women are going through perimenopause, something very subtle happens. Weight shifts. And by the way, the roughly 20 pounds of perimenopause weight gain is absolutely physiological. It is not a willpower problem. But alongside the physical changes, there is a gradual, quiet erosion of the daily subconscious signals that used to say you are in the game. So the habit is dress every day like you are winning, whatever that means for you, in your environment, in your office, in your boardroom. Show up looking the part, not because anyone is judging you, but because your brain is. I will be honest with you. I go to the gym because I want to look in the mirror and feel strong. And I know that the moment I feel physically strong, it translates immediately into how I show up in my work, how I lead my team, the energy I bring to every conversation. It is a feedback loop. When you feel attractive, capable, and physically present, you send a continuous subconscious signal to your brain that you are still in the game, and that signal matters. When I work with female leaders and we fix the underlying metabolic issues, which is always the goal, the byproduct is that many of them lose that perimenopause weight. And what I observe every single time is that it creates a completely different energy, different posture, different confidence, different presence in a room. We do it for brain health and metabolic performance. But the external signal reinforces the internal one. So make it a daily habit. Dress for it, show up for it. It is not vanity, it is a leadership decision. These habits are powerful, and I have seen them change things significantly for the women I work with. But I want to be honest with you here. They are foundational. And if you are a senior leader whose career depends on consistent, reliable performance, and you are noticing real variability in your clarity, your stamina, your presence, habits alone won't be enough. What I do with my private clients is different. We don't start with the list of things to try. We start with the diagnosis. We find the actual constraint. And then we build a system around it that is specific to your biology, your role, and the pressure you are operating under. If that sounds like what you need, the link in the description will take you to a confidential call where we can talk about whether working together makes sense. So for more habits, let's keep going. Habit 4 is one that is easy to dismiss, but please don't. When estradiol declines, and the research here is particularly from Lisa Mosconi's work, is very clear on this. The brain does something predictable. The estradiol receptors in the brain actually increase in density. The brain is essentially searching for the hormone it used to have. And in response to that deprivation, the system prioritizes survival. It defaults to the amygdala, the emotional threat detection center, because when resources are scarce, keeping you safe takes priority over keeping you optimistic. The result is that many women in this transition become significantly more negative, not because of who they are, because of what their brain is biochemically prioritizing. And here is the problem with that. If the negativity is not actively interrupted, it behaves exactly like the identity erosion I described in habit 1. What we do often enough, that is who we become. And if people around you experience you as the person who always sees the problem, always anticipates the risk, always dampens the energy in the room, you start losing status quietly, progressively. I joke with my clients that nobody wants to be the wet blanket in every meeting. They laugh, but they know exactly what I mean. So the habit here is catch yourself intentionally, minimum 5 times a day, doing something positive. At the start, write it down. 2 moments of genuine kindness, a message, a comment, something real. 1 moment of choosing the constructive interpretation of a situation over the critical one. 1 moment of being an inspiring presence for someone. 1 moment of genuine humor. 5 moments a day. It works because it creates a competing feedback loop to the one the biology is generating. It protects your status in your organization, and over time it reinforces a version of yourself that people want to be around and follow. Habit 5, and this one I see misdiagnosed constantly. I worked with a client who came to me saying she thought she had ADHD. She was scattered. She couldn't finish anything. She would start a task and be pulled away 12 times before she made any progress. She genuinely did not recognize herself. We checked her hormonal profile. Everything was within the normal range. So we looked at her calendar. It was chaos. No structure. Meetings scattered randomly through every day. Chat notifications, emails, colleagues who knew her door was always open. She wasn't incapable of focusing. She was operating in an environment that made focus structurally impossible for anyone, let alone someone whose cognitive margin is currently narrower than usual. The problem is not your attention span, it's your environment. So the habit is engineer your environment so that focus is the only possible outcome. Practically, start with 2 large protected morning blocks per week. No notification, no email, no open chats. 1 task, you don't move until it's finished. And here is what I add on top of that, which I find particularly effective. Gamify it. For me personally, I'm slightly obsessed lately with puppies. I'm working with a breeder, and realistically, a puppy is probably a year away. But I know that when I finish my most important work, I get 2 minutes on the breeder's Instagram to look at the new puppies. It sounds ridiculous, but it works because it creates a clean reward, a reason to close the loop and the transition point between 2 activities so you don't drag the energy of one thing into the next. Find your version of the puppies, build the reward, make focus a game you actually want to win. This habit works because it proves to you through direct experience that you can focus. The problem was never internal, it was structural. Habit 6, and this one is very practical and very modern. If you have a process, anything your team does repeatedly, anything that is currently managed through a checklist, an SOP, a workflow that requires human attention to execute, it is time to ask the question, can an AI agent do this? The situation I see with a lot of senior leaders right now is that their teams are still running significant amount of administrative process-heavy work through manual human effort. And that is a structural problem that hits you in 2 ways. People make mistakes, systems don't. People are inconsistent in timing, automation isn't. And the more your team energy is absorbed by workflow management and process execution, the less of their actual intelligence is available for the work that requires it. So the habit here is work with your team to identify every process that follows a predictable sequence and learn how to program an AI agent to handle it. Systematically move repetitive workflow off human plates and onto automated system. This works because it creates a substantial lower error rate across operations. It frees your highest capability people for the work where their intelligence actually creates leverage. And the team that isn't drowning in admin is a team that can operate at a genuinely higher level, which reflects directly on you. This is leadership using technology intentionally, protecting your human capital by refusing to waste it on tasks that don't require it. And the seventh habit is the one that I think surprises people the most. Stay useful. And the way to stay useful is to play, to laugh, and to genuinely connect with the generation that is currently coming up. Let me explain what I mean. Senior female leaders at this stage of their career often maintain a certain distance. They have authority, they have seniority, and there is a professional gravity that comes with it. But what I observe, and this is consistent, is that the leaders who stay most impactful, who retain the most influence over time, are the ones who can still be playful, not performatively, genuinely. They can walk into a room with younger colleagues and actually engage with what those colleagues care about. They can find the humor in hard moments, they can play. And at a psychological level, that ability to play creates connection across generations that is very difficult to build any other way. The mechanism is simple. When you can match someone at play, you connect at a level that authority alone cannot reach. And that connection is what extends influence. It keeps you relevant not because of your title, but because of the energy you bring. So the habit here is spend time with younger people, deliberately, not to mentor in a formal sense, just to genuinely connect. Go where they are, engage with what they engage with, find what's funny. Let yourself be curious about their world. It keeps your spirit high. When your spirit is high, you feel young, not in years, but in energy. And that useful energy, that sense that everything is still possible and open, is what keeps you leading with forward momentum, rather than just managing from the experience. The women who come through this transition with the most career trajectory are not the ones who double down on seniority. They are the ones who stayed alive, curious, playful, connected. That is what this habit builds. So those are the 7 habits. Protect your identity, feed your crystallized intelligence, dress like you are winning, train your brain for positivity, engineer your environment for focus, automate everything you can, and stay useful by staying connected. If you want to go deeper into what is actually happening to your brain during this transition, not the surface level, but the real mechanism, I want you to watch this video next. In it, I break down exactly what is shifting neurologically, why the common solutions stop working, and what a proper system looks like to address it. See you over there.